Hello everyone, I'm Jan Johnsen, and I'm here courtesy of the Pleasantville Garden Club. I gave a talk to them this morning and they very nicely asked me to do it for the television, and that's why I'm here. I'm a landscape designer. I've been in the profession for over 40 years and I've written several books. My latest book is called The Spirit of Stone, and that's what I'm sharing with you today, stonescaping ideas for your garden. So without any further ado, I'm going to start the talk. Stone is the overlooked player in our landscapes. While we might ooh and ah over all the flowers and the plants, the stone sits idly by, silently, not hardly ever being noticed. But you know, without stone, we don't have that contrast that we need. You see here, the stone creates that durable, hard contrast to the very fine foliage of the Japanese maple. Also, stone is a strong component of our walls and our steps and our walks. And there's other things that stone can do. Look at this beautiful stone accent. Isn't that nice? But let's start at the beginning. Do you remember playing with rocks? Maybe you stacked them, or maybe you painted them, or maybe you touched them, or threw them, or climbed on them, or touched them again. Well, you know what? We can still play with rocks, and we can do it in our gardens, and no one will think the worst of us. So, we can still stack the rocks. You see the one on the left there? That is in my house, and I ask everyone to please stack the stones. And people really get into it. Maybe you've tried it. I have one friend, he kind of got obsessed, and he started stacking stones like this. I asked him how long it took, or how long they would stay that way, and he said till the first breeze came along. But isn't that fun? Try it, it's fun. We can also paint rocks. So you can make great vegetable garden markers like you do here. You just have to use paint markers, not magic markers, but paint markers. And if you get into it like this, maybe you want to try painting the rocks like this. You get finer paint marks like I show here. I did a workshop with this and people didn't want to stop. It's kind of like those coloring books. A lot of little dots. Isn't that fun? Makes great presents. And then painting them further, look at this. You have to prime the stones first, meaning you have to paint them with white paint first and then do that. Isn't that a great idea with the cactus rocks? And lastly, if you don't have time for a real water feature in your garden, why not paint a rock like this with the fish and then make it your feature? We can also touch rocks. Now in Japan, there is a tradition called suiseki, or viewing stones, and that's what I show you here. You see the rocks? Well, they are meant to be touched. See the sign? Feel free to rub your hand across the surface. Now this is in Japan, and what they do is they raise the rock above the elevation of the sidewalk so that it's closer to your hand so that you can touch them more easily. I think this is a great idea, and maybe you should try this in your garden. It doesn't have to be as formal as this. You can just take a nice rock that you found and put it on a wood post. So this person found a nice rounded stone, put it on a wood post, placed it in the garden bed, and there you go. Their version of a touching stone. You think this might be a little silly, but look what they did in Iceland. They took that same idea and placed about 52 of them along the highway. And people drive out, park, and get out and touch all the rocks. And lastly, look at this talk about touching stones. This is in a wonderful public garden in Wayne, Pennsylvania called Chanticleer, and this is lovingly referred to as Fred Flintstone's living room. Isn't that great? It's all stone, and they encourage you to sit. And the best part of it is, look at that. That's Fred Flintstone's stone TV remote. I love that. if you want to sit on rocks, there's many different ways to do it in a garden. This is at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. And stone benches, in my opinion, are a very important component of gardens. Unlike wood benches, stone benches ground you. There's something about sitting on a stone bench that makes you feel a part of the earth and a part of the whole environment. Wood benches don't give you the same feeling. And by the way, these benches here are all from gardens that I've designed. As a matter of fact, most of the gardens here are from northern Westchester, and they're projects that I have done. This stone bench, which I adore, is in the Dallas Arboretum, and I had to take a photo of that. And this is in Seattle Airport. Now, people aren't sitting on the stones, but they're sitting next to them, and that's almost just as good. I took this in Seattle as I was walking from the airplane to the baggage claim. And look closely, I think I managed to take a photo of Bill Gates while I was there. I'm not sure, but maybe so. So what is the Spirit of Stone? That is the name of my book, and it is about stone's ineffable qualities. Stone is enduring, and it resounds with the energy of a place. It will be here, it was here long before we got here, and it will be here long after we leave. This is in Storm King Art Center in Mountainville, New York, near Cornwall-on-Hudson. A great place to visit. And this is a sinuous stone wall built by Andy Goldsworthy. See how the stone is there enduring and unchanging, whereas the trees will change, the stone will not. That is part of the Spirit of Stone. And here, this is in Ojai, California. This is a rock garden, and the stones have dark splotches on them because there was a big fire, all the plants burnt up, the stones of course remained, and now the plants have come back. And that's another beautiful thing about stone. They kind of, even with their markings and grain, tell you a little bit about the history of the place. In fact, the Native Americans say they are memory keepers. This is in Scotland, the same idea of the spirit of stone between the cosmos and the sky. Charles Jenks loves to use stone for that reason. And you know, the Japanese say that stone has the purest energy. It has energy that's much slower than ours, but it's very, very pure, and you can almost feel it when you're around the rocks. There is life in a stone. Any stone that sits in a field or lies on the beach takes on the memory of that place. That's what Andy Goldsworthy, the great artist, the eco artist, you could say, he works with stone and leaves and more. That's what he says about rock. And with that, I'd like to just say it's always best to use stone from your property or from your region because it has that same energy. It resonates with the place. This is in York, Maine, and you see the stones are black and tan and gray. And 200 feet away from this beach is a beautiful farmer's shed, and he used the same stone, black, gray, and tan. And so that makes it all more special. He could have brought in stones, but by using the local stone, it has a special feeling. So now I'm going to talk about 3 different aspects of stone. The first is sustainable stone. And what do I mean by sustainable? It's stone that we can use to help us maintain the ecology of the site. You know, stone is naturally eco-friendly. It's weatherproof. It's of course recyclable, and it's easily cleaned with water. All those are very important, and in addition, stone can be used to keep stormwater on site. Why is that important? Because we don't want to pipe the water off our property and into the drains anymore. Everyone wants us to keep the water on site. So you can do something like this with stone channels, where when it rains, the water goes into these little channels. And here, this is in Pittsburgh. You can also use native plants like dwarf inkberry, nodding onion. Now, you take the idea of stone channels and you want to make it a little bit more suited for a garden. So this is what you can do. It's something I call dry stream. And this actually is in my backyard. I have a very small backyard. And dry streams look like a natural stream, but they don't contain water. They're there to collect water when it rains, but they still look very nice. And in there I use Carex Evergold and purple Gomphrena, both of which are deer resistant. So how do you make a dry stream? Well, you first lay out any kind of channel that you think looks like a stream, any kind of configuration you want. You dig out the soil about 12 to 14 inches deep, and you put all that soil on one side of the stream. You fill it with inexpensive gravel wrapped in filter fabric, like you see there. And then afterwards, you top it off with river stones, and you place the rocks along the banks of your stream. And that's how you do it. Here's another one. We dug the channel, we filled it with gravel. I haven't yet placed the filter fabric on top, but I will. Filter fabric's important because it prevents soil from going down into your gravel. You don't want it to get all filled up with mud or anything. So what you don't see here is we will be placing filter fabric on top of the gravel, and then here's how it turned out. The reason you want to put soil on one side of the channel is so that when you plant your plants like Carex, hosta, oak leaf hydrangeas, when they droop down, they don't actually touch the dry stream. They're a little bit raised up. And here's another kind of dry stream. It's a little bit more rustic. This is at the Dallas Arboretum, and I really like that stone bridge in the backdrop. By the way, I should mention to you about carrying rocks. A good way to move rocks around is by using a tree cart. That's what's on the bottom here. And you can rent the tree cart for a day. The one on top I've never used, but it looks kind of interesting. I like tree carts because the wheels on them are very big and they let you to move around the site easily. And this is an interesting way to carry a rock. This is a utensil called a pot lifter. That's the name of it, pot lifter. And you can move the rocks that way. Or the good old wheelbarrow works well. Talking about sustainable stone, look at the gravel walkways. Gravel walkways tend to get rutted, and that's why people don't like to use them. Here you can use a honeycomb plastic base filled with gravel, and it's a nice rigid walk that lets the water drain. And this is a close-up. There's filter fabric attached to the bottom of it, and you fill it up with gravel. Really great idea. And of course, when we talk about gravel, there's all sorts of gravel you can use, all different colors. Go to your local gravel yard and take some plastic bags and fill them up, and you can have little samples of the different gravels that are available to you. Okay, so now I talked to you about sustainable stone, but how do you really make it pretty? How do you use it in your garden? Well, here's an idea. You see here the chain link fence, that's the property line, and all the land and water were draining down towards that property line. So to prevent water from going onto the neighbor's property, we brought in some big rocks, as you see, backfilled them with soil. I built that little curved wall on the right, and then this is what we did. I made steps with gravel and bluestone, and now the water just drains and gets absorbed by the steps. A nice, sustainable, and good-looking solution. And here are some plants. Last but not least, this is a really interesting feature. This is gravel that's bound together with a polymer. It's a plastic kind of polymer binder, and it lets the water go straight through the gravel. This is at the New York Botanic Gardens in the Native Plant Garden. You can see it there, walk on it. It's hard surfacing that lets water through. You must vacuum it to get the debris out several times a year, but other than that, it works great. The next kind of stone is functional stone, and that's walkways, walls, and steps. And I'm telling you, there's so many different ways you can use stone in the landscape. Here is a beautiful walkway, and why not add a few rocks and a few bricks? It makes it all the more interesting. And here are steps. You can use stones from the site like we did here in the front, very natural, rustic kind of steps. And we got all the stones from the site. And it's nice to plant that fluffy, feathery lamb's ears next to it. You see that? The soft and the hard together always makes a garden interesting. And of course there are stone walls. And I would like you to become a connoisseur of stone walls. And what I mean by that is just notice how many varieties of stone walls there exist around us. Like this one is at Innisfree in Millbrook, New York. I love this stone wall. Oh, and that's climbing hydrangea. And here's a great stone wall. This one is on one of my projects, and it actually has mortar holding the rocks together, but it's recessed, and recessed mortared walls are very desirable. There is mortar holding the rocks together, but it looks like a dry laid stone wall. And I planted nepeta or catmint, which is deer resistant, in the front, and that kind of adds that softness I was talking about. The nepeta or the catmint combined with the roses against the wall looks really nice. And look at this. This is a recessed mortared wall also. This is a limestone wall, and the recessed mortar creates those dark lines that catch your eye. So look at all these different kinds of walls. There's mortared walls, recessed mortared walls, dry laid walls. Just notice them, become a connoisseur. And before I leave stone walls, look at this. This is, how do you treat the top of the wall? Top of the wall can be mortared like you see here with a line of spirea behind it, or you can put a bluestone cap on like we did here in this lovely garden. That wall there serves as a sitting bench as well. And lastly, you have dry laid stone walls. And these walls have no mortar. They're just literally held together by gravity. They're hard to build, but they have such a great rustic look to them, especially when you have plants like hostas and hydrangeas. And this is a dry laid wall, no mortar at all. And this is a more modern look, which I really think is great. This is at the New York Botanic Gardens. And what's interesting here is that the top stones are larger than the bottom ones, and that's because the weight of the top stones keep them all together. It's a real art. Here's a mortared stone wall that's in the process of being built. And what happened here was we unearthed this big boulder or rock outcrop, and it wasn't all that good looking. It was kind of coming apart. So we built this stone wall, and here it is in the process of being built. And after it was built, I put some soil behind the wall and planted roses, and here's how it came out. It was very successful. I didn't try to hide the rock outcrop, and I used Pink Supreme Flower Carpet Rose. Later on, I added something else called Stacky's Humalo, just for a different color combination. Really nice combination. I've talked about steps and walls. Let me just say a few things about stone walks. Stone walks also come in many varieties. Here is one that we were building, and it's a little bit more formal. And there's blue stone at the edge, and this is it finished. Isn't that nice? That is a random pattern, and it takes quite a bit of work to install this, but it really creates such a nice look. And that's the beauty of stone, it stays a long time. You don't have to be as formal. You can do it like this. This is in Chanticleer. Add some ferns. Or you could just take some 2-foot by 3-foot bluestone pavers and make a paver walk like you see here. And if that is too formal, you can simply put some rocks that you find in the earth surrounded by gravel like I did here. Or you could do it surrounded by mulch. Those orange or backhouse lilies. So if you want to do a stepping stone walk, make sure to space the stones to match the normal footsteps. Use different sized stones and angle them just to create some interest. Now I'm going to ask you to look at the following photo and tell me what you think. Here is a stepping stone walk. You see it here, very nice, evenly spaced. Well, after about 15 years, we decided to change this walk and we made it look like this. I often ask my audiences which they prefer. The Pleasantville Garden Club was split 50-50. 50% like the one on the left and 50% like the one on the right. And lastly, let me talk about reflexology paths. This is a stone walk with a very great health benefit. We have more nerve endings in our feet and they are connected to our organs, and when we step on these, our feet get stimulated. This is in Asia. And when you walk barefoot, your whole body tingles. Isn't this a great idea? A reflexology path. I would like one in every park in America. And I'm going to end with rock gardens in stone, and I've saved the best for last. Azaleas, columbines, foam flowers, they all look great next to rocks. See this one, foam flower and columbine? How great is that? And here's a native, Heuchera villosa, hairy alum root, looks wonderful in the shade next to rocks and deer resistant. And this is for shady wet sites, golden groundsel with yellow flowers in the spring. But it looks great in front of that stone wall, don't you think? And Echeveria, you can use hens and chicks in our part of the world with stones. What a great sight. Without the rocks, it wouldn't have the same effect. And look at this. This is in the Steinhardt Garden in Mount Kisco, New York. Hillside pink Sheffield chrysanthemums, and they bloom in October and November, and they come back every year, and they look great like this against the rock. And this one I planted up, it's got coreopsis and daylilies and looks great in the summer. So let me end with this, Japanese rock garden placement. I would like for you to remember this. Number 1, the Japanese considered stones more important than trees. There are 5 kinds of stones: wood, metal, fire, earth, and water. The first one is wood. It's tall like a tree, skinny in the backdrop. See, these are wood stones, look like trees. The tallest stones in the garden. The next is metal. They look like the tree, but a little bit shorter, and they're always next to the tree. Wood and metal go together. The third one is fire. It has the most character of any rocks in the garden. There's only a few of them because they're so interesting you don't want to crowd them out. This is a fire rock, or a character rock as I call it. Earth is the most common rock in the rock garden. It's got a flat top. It harmonizes with everybody and everything. And the last is water. It looks like water like an island in the sea. So here's the quiz. Where's the tree? The tree is in the back. Where's metal? Metal, of course, is right next to him and a little shorter. Where is the character rock? Well, there's one. There's another. Where is earth? There's many earth. And lastly, where is water? Yep, right in the front. Those are the 5 kinds of stones in a Japanese rock garden. And don't forget worshiping stone and standing stone. Worshipping stone and standing stone, it's a common thing that you find because it's magnetic. One is very strongly magnetic, one is not. Granite and limestone, yin and yang. because stones can be magnetic. See this? So in conclusion, stone resounds with the energy of a place. This is in Palm Springs. Isn't that beautiful? And it grounds us and comforts us and resonates with the space. And stone quietly reminds us of time and endurance. When you see moss-covered rocks, you'll know what I mean. They've been here long before we ever showed up, but they'll be here when we leave. The memory keepers. And that is the spirit of stone. I write about all of this in my book, The Spirit of Stone, and I also have a chapter devoted to it in my previous book, Heaven is a Garden, which is now in its third printing. So I hope that this show about stonescaping and the spirit of stone has made you look at rocks a little bit differently than you might, because stones surround us here in Westchester County, and I feel that we don't really spend too much attention with rocks, and I think we really should, and we should treasure them, because they really do comfort us and ground us. And children love to climb rocks. You know, children these days spend so much time looking at the screen, when in fact they really should be out there outside playing, and especially being grounded. They're not grounded. So just the simple act of children climbing rocks makes such a difference in their lives. I know that sounds a little silly, but it really is true. Sitting on rocks, climbing rocks, incorporating rocks in our gardens is such an important thing that we should consider doing. Even if it's a solitary standing stone, which I do quite a bit. When I showed you that photo about stones lead the way, I think that you could understand what I was saying. But standing stones can catch the eye. You place them in your plant bed, you put them at the entrance to your garden. If you find a special rock, show it off. Like the touching stones I talked about at the beginning, suiseki, the viewing stones. Place it on a wood post or something, stick it in the middle of your plant bed, or urge people to touch it. It is a way for us to connect to the earth, just like reflexology paths that I talked about. When we connect to the earth with our feet, we feel better, we relax, we get more comfortable. It's something that is very special. And we don't have enough of that. And when I say that stone resounds with the energy of a place, I mean it really does reflect our place on earth, and it's very different everywhere you go. But I want you to remember that, and I hope that the spirit of stone becomes a part of your life in some little way, even if it's stacking 6 little rocks in your backyard or your terrace. And I urge you to look up my books in Amazon or in your local bookstore, and I hope to share more inspiration with you in future shows. So thank you very much.